Good morning, everyone. Are you guys looking for a race car? Well, I have the perfect car for you. I've been building this car since the pandemic, and today we're actually going to take it out and get it serviced. This is none other than the BMW M4, which is right behind me. I have posted this car up for sale, but today we're going to go through the exact list of what this car has on it and why it's the perfect candidate to become your future race car. And you know, if you buy this, I might even help you learn how to drive on track, or at least hire a team to help you drive on track. But this car is purpose-built, and the whole mission of it before was to annoy the Porsche race cars on the track. But my mission has changed, and sadly, I needed to let go of a few babies so that I can focus on a few more babies and just get honed in on my target of being the fastest person on the Philippine racetrack. So let's jump in the car right now and head to Motul, and we're gonna go over the car and show you guys all the parts that we've thrown at this car and why it's the perfect candidate to be your next race car. Okay, so for those of you who have been following me for a super long time, my first introduction to driving sports cars was a BMW. The BMW back then was the ultimate driving machine, and it still is up to this day. Now, nice thing with this BMW M4, it is a manual. It's very rare to find a manual BMW M4, and let alone something with this many tasteful mods that we're gonna go over. But guys, go through my YouTube channel. I first started off with my YouTube escapades in a BMW E39 M5, and I absolutely love that car so much. It was the perfect introduction to the European tuning world. And the car was huge. It was a 4-door saloon, and believe it or not, even if it was such a big car, it moved so well after doing all the mods for it, and it sounded amazing. If you guys go on my YouTube channel, you can actually watch one of my more infamous videos when I'm drifting up the road of Calaraya in this BMW E39 M5. And we were back then watching all the corners, so we were safe. I did get some flack for it back then, but it was good fun. And nowadays, obviously, we won't do that because the road is super busy. But that was my introduction. And through the years, I've actually owned a lot of the BMW series from the E34, E46, which I still own. I've actually had 2 E46s. I still own one E46, which is my drift car, which soon we will be reviving. At one point, I was so obsessed with BMWs, I actually built an E38 limousine, and that was the wrongest move of my life, because the E38 limousine was very difficult to move around in Manila. Plus, because of the extended wheelbase of it, we actually had so much problems with air conditioning because it was not meant to have that much space in cubic volume. But it was a good fun project. We made it in the Philippines. It was the first of its kind. So over the years, I've been obsessed with BMWs, and this was a pandemic project, and I bought it because I really love the idea of having my own modern 2J in that sense, because I really love the engine from the Supras, but I didn't like how the Supras were so bulky. Mind you though, I mean, the Supra is probably smaller than this car, but in that day, or at least in that decision that I had, I wanted to get a modern version of a Supra, and weirdly enough, the Supras were not local to the Philippines. They're all gray market imports. They're all converted from left-hand drive or right-hand drive to left-hand drive. So the options were very slim, and this came out, it was a manual M4. It was pristine, relatively stock. It had a straight pipe, which was horrendous, but we removed that and replaced it with something more tasteful. And through the years of the pandemic, it became my project, which I was very hands-on. You can actually go through my catalog on the farm playlist where you can see me modding this car, and we're gonna go over all the things in this car. Now, I would say the only things lacking with this car as a complete build, in my opinion, is a roll cage, a fire suppression system, and then a upgraded clutch. And then if you're getting to a serious pro level, an upgraded LSD. And beyond that, everything is done in this car. And I actually tried to make a list of all the parts, so hopefully we're gonna cover all that when we get to the Motul shop. Short tunnel. And that's it. I don't know if we'll have time today, but I actually want to dyno this car and figure out how much power we have, because when we got it tuned with Titan, they basically had a chip tune only. So we don't have actual relevant dyno figures. And Motul has a dyno on site. I really wish this car sounded like a 2J. I think I would keep it if it sounded like a 2J. There is a way to sort of fix the underpiping and I guess make it a single turbine to make it sound like a 2J, but it genuinely is a lot of more work that I don't want to get into at the moment. Okay, we're finally here. So if you guys didn't know, this is the Motul flagship store here in Banaue. And they have full services and we're gonna go straight in. I see Jules waiting for us already. They have their own car carrier. That's a Dyno room straight in. There's Jules. Good morning, thanks for meeting me. Where do I slot it?
In the middle.
Nice point 8. Look at that. So welcome back here to the Motul flagship store. The car is on the lift right now and we're gonna get a full service, change oil, change filter, and then we're gonna go get to look underneath the car to show you guys all the modifications of why this makes sense as a perfect race car. Now, I keep talking about this and people might be asking maybe a DCT transmission or a dual clutch transmission is better than a manual. Yes, probably faster on track and easier to drive as a beginner driver. But if you truly want to be connected to your car and you want to learn how to do drifting and you need the clutch kicking, then definitely I think a manual has an advantage. The boys are getting straight to it. And first off is they're going to be draining the oil. And I don't know if we're going to get to look at the oil quality also, but it's a good time to see underneath the car and talk about the modifications that I've done through the years. I'll go over the whole car from the exterior to the beautification bit all the way till the performance bit. So we'll make sure to cover all bases when we're talking about this car. And I guess first off is the exterior, right? The Liberty Walk kit along with the Dimag Brada wheel barrels. And I went with the Liberty Walk kit because we were trying to fit the most amount of tire underneath the fender. And these are 305/30/20s and they're actually super sticky Pirelli Trofeo Rs. These are actual track tires that is very sticky once you get them heated up. And then the Dimag barrels are very lightweight. And then the Brada wheels, the lightest version of what we could find. And I did like the design of the old wheels. The Liberty Walk kit was just aesthetic. I decided that it was the best looking kit at that time. In the back of the car is a Rimac Catback exhaust, and this is part of the Liberty Walk kit. This is the diffuser of it, and we went with a Catback exhaust because I didn't want to be super obnoxiously noisy. So the Rimac Catback exhaust looks like that. So the Rimac Catback exhaust allows the gases to go through the pipe and exit through the smaller pipe, and it actually connects again over here. We have the valve system here and it dumps the air back through. Now, obviously, if you're doing maximum power, it just goes straight through where it doesn't go through this anymore. It does bypass a little, but what happens is the valve here opens and you get straight through exhaust, which is pretty cool. Engine oil is draining. And as you can see, the engine oil looks relatively clean. Again, I haven't used this car that much, but definitely has to go. The thing with engine oil is you actually want to change the engine oil every year at least, or every 5,000 kilometers in my opinion, because the oil does trap all the contaminants. It also cools down the engine, and sometimes it just gets dirty even if you don't use the car. So this is the active work mid-pipe, and the mid-pipe is trying to do an equal length. That's why you see one with the squiggly lines and one is just straight. So what's happening is it's trying to equalize the pressure so that by the time it exits down to the rear, it has a better sound. This did improve the sound of the car, but it's still not the 2JZ sound that I was looking for. But as you can see, the active work equal length mid-pipe is such a funny thing. It's got an X-pipe here to equalize the sound, and then the small resonators there, and it connects straight out to the back to the Rimac kit. And I watched so many videos online to see and hear all these cars, and this sounded like the best option so far. So I went with the Bilstein suspension. The Bilstein suspension has the active damping system, which allows us to use the button on the console. And as you can see, we went with the SPL arms. We got the stainless braided brake lines. And then we went with the upgraded sway bars as well. What happens when you upgrade the rear arms from removing the rubber bushings to the solid rose ball joints? It removes the deflection from the arm. The deflection means when you're cornering, there's no more, I guess, slack. The slack of moving a rubber joint versus a steel or spherical ball joint is next to none. So what happens is the car is now more responsive. It gives the driver more immediate feedback, and it doesn't have any slop where the car leans on the rubber bushings and to an extent. So with this system, you basically know where your rear end is at any time because the connection is very strong. Most people, when they change brakes for track use, they go with steel rotors, but I went the complete opposite. This car had steel rotors already, and I decided to install carbon ceramic brakes. Carbon ceramic brakes are much lighter, unsprung mass-wise. It gives us less weight, and they just look better. They fill up the wheel, and I love carbon. That's carbon rotors, carbon side skirts, carbon hood, carbon roof, carbon mirrors, and everything else is carbon. Now we're going to the front of the car. I have scraped this car quite a few times, but very negligible. Here in the front suspension, we also upgraded the tie rods. We have sort of this bump steer over here, which allows us to recenter the tie rod so that when you're running really low, you can basically get better geometry. And here also we have the SPL rods where they're solid jointed, as you can see here, and they're fully adjustable, which gives us, again, more control. And then we ended up changing the sway bar also in front over here. The only thing stock left is this bushing over here, which has maybe some deflection. Same with the front. We have these massive, beautiful gold calipers, these stainless braided brake lines. So not everything is performance related. This is actually safety related. This is a Turner skid plate, which is actually also a vent, because we have a cooler down here, and sometimes when you hit a rock, this breaks and you have a massive leak. So definitely having this plate down here makes sense to protect the investment. So same idea with the front suspension and the rear suspension. We removed as many rubber bushings as we can so that the car has a more accurate, responsive feeling where you're not having any slop or sag from the rubber bushings. So over time, rubber bushings, I guess like between 5 to 7 years, the rubber bushing will crumble because the rubber will dry out. But in general, when you remove the rubber bushings, the car does get stiffer on the road. But on the track, it actually becomes very responsive and very sensitive to giving feedback to the driver and the steering wheel. Massive carbon brakes in front. They look so good. Now, same in front, I decided to go with a 265/30/20. I could have gone with oversized wheels, but I wanted to get better rubbers, and these are Trofeo R's again in front. So we're going to do a quick alignment check also today and see if our alignment is good. They're almost done draining the oil. So technically you can actually reuse your oil filter. Now a lot of people don't advise this because sometimes you have metal filings and stuff in the oil. But technically, like for my case, because my cars don't get high mileage and this one hasn't been tracked since we built it, I think we could have reused the oil filter by just literally draining the oil and then changing the oil, because the oil coming out was relatively clean again, but most manufacturers won't advise you to do this. I did see a review online that this is okay for cars that are in long-term storage, but nowadays oil filters are so cheap, so you can definitely replace them when you want to. Here up in front of the car, we have a massive charge cooler, and we're going to talk about all this when the car is back on the ground. So it doesn't look so dirty yet, but paper filter, right? Of course, we are requested to run 300V, which is the racing oil here at Motul. Okay guys, let's talk about the engine. This is a S55 engine. S55 is the engine code, and these engines are notorious for spinning the crank hub. The crank hub is basically what controls the oil pump, and when you spin the crank hub, you don't get oil and then you basically screw up the motor. So this engine has been upgraded. Tito and the team at Titan have installed a crank hub here which fixes that issue, and we have this beautiful e-Venturi intake. The e-Venturi intake is a intake from the UK, and it allows us to get better cold air without the pipes collapsing. That's why these pipes are carbon. We have the CSF charge cooler over here, along with the eVenturi intake pipes over there. And then this one also gets us better intake air temperatures. And then down to the radiator, which is underneath the Motul here. Now you can see behind the M4 logo, we have this little scoop here. This little scoop allows us to ram cold air straight here, and it splits with the radiator and goes straight to the intake to get cold air, even if it's under the hood. Now the hood here is a M4 GTS hood. It is vented and it looks amazing, and it's lightweight. So when you're building a high horsepower car and a track use car, you have to divide your modifications from performance, safety, reliability, and just aesthetic overall looks. And we have done so many combinations with this car to get it to where we are. Underneath, what you don't see are pure stage 2 turbos. Obviously, the injectors have been uprated also so that we can get more fueling. Engines are basic air pumps, and when you upgrade turbos, you increase more air. If you increase more air, you need to increase more fuel, so that when you combine the two, you basically get more combustion. Now, the coil packs on this have been upgraded also. We have higher ignition coil packs so that we can get more spark when we need it. And the engine, again, has been chip-tuned. Up in front was the CSF radiator. I did change the radiator because a lot of the people who track these cars did advise that we upgrade the radiator and the charge cooler so that we can get better constant intake temperatures. Nowadays, when you track most of the more modern cars, when you get to the 3rd or 4th lap, you're gonna have overheat, you're gonna have heat soak. And these measures at least help reduce those chances. Now, it might still happen. I haven't tracked this new setup again. The last time I tracked this car was in BRC, and we ended up blowing a ignition coil, which meant we were misfiring. The car had to be towed back home. Thank God it wasn't anything major, but the car did handle well. I think in BRC, I still own the title of fastest manual transmission on track. And it's not an official title, I just coined that. But moving down to the rear of the car is this super crazy wing. This is the AeroMotion S2 wing. It's an active wing. Now, we haven't gotten it to work just yet. It is connected, it is power on. You will see it articulate. So the AeroMotion wing has a split down the middle because the left and the right side can articulate on its own. And you can see here the little tie rod, which basically is controlled by a motor underneath the car. Now, if you have any BMW, nowadays they come with composite trunks, which means we had to reinforce the whole system. This whole system brace here allows us to make sure that the wing is rigidly mounted on the trunk bracing here. Now, this is the brain for the AeroMotion over here. This is controlled with accelerometers, and we have it powered, but again, it's not working the way I want it to work. Now, in the trunk, didn't do anything much. For track use, you can remove all these things, you can save a little more weight. This was the variant for it. This was supposed to be for my R35 GTR, but I never got to modify the car, so it never made it on it. And we had this variant, or at least the more simpler variant, on my Subaru STI, and that worked wonders, although we were never able to do a time with it and time without it. Now, on this car, we got the AeroMotion wing to function, but what's happening is the wing is able to do 3 or 4 modes, at least left up, right up, which allows us to pivot and turn more. So let's say I'm doing a left-hander turn and the car needs to turn tighter. What happens is this side will go up, which causes drag and downforce, which allows the car to turn in faster. During braking, the wing will pop up to give us an air brake, and then during acceleration with 0 or very mild steering input, the wing will go down to give us DRS. So that was the whole gist of this AeroMotion wing. I am in touch with the company, so hopefully we can get this to work soon. So because we're waiting for an oil filter, I asked the boys to do a quick alignment check. Now, before you do any quick alignment check, you want to make sure to check your tire pressure. We're at 35 PSI all around to make sure that the car is balanced. Now, we're going to see how close we are to the factory spec for the BMW M4. But beyond that, it's just to verify everything is still in proper alignment. And we're here already and they offered a service, so why not? Toe setting, yan, camber is okay. And then caster to. The boys said the front had very little variance on the toe and the steering wheel was slightly off center, but they're done already. Now they finished changing the engine oil also, and the next stop would be if we can get the car on the dyno. So weirdly enough, my NSX block is over here also. and they are honing it right now. So we had the sleeves done in the US, and now we're honing it down because it's hitting the counterweight for the crank. So they have a complete machine shop right here, and it's so interesting. It's a one-stop shop. They do PPF also. They have the dyno, which we're gonna try to get the car on the dyno and do a baseline tune. So the dyno's in here, and they actually have a motorcycle dyno next door also, in case you need more power on a motorcycle dyno. But their own car carrier, their own PPF system. They do mechanical work also here. And literally a one-stop shop here in Banawe. May makita ka ba? Okay, the official Motul banner is installed already, and I'm going to talk about the external mods of the car. A lot of the outside bits are all cosmetic. I got the carbon eyelid, I got the carbon flap here, and then the carbon lower part there, along with the Liberty Walk diffuser, again the M4 GTS hood, the Liberty Walk fenders, and we're gonna actually walk through the interior of the car to show you guys some of the last mods of the inside. But the carbon roof on the M4 is standard. The rear diffuser, again Liberty Walk, but those side flicks over here, that's from Amazon. Those are just pretty parts to add on to the car. Okay, I want to talk about the interior of the M4. We still have the standard door sidings, but this is the highlight for the interior. This is the Recaro seat that we got from XLR. And it's super lightweight and actually very functional, but it's not the comfiest chair. We do have rear seat deletes also, and as you can see from here all the way down, we've deleted the rear seat so that we can save some weight also. But technically, if you want to save more weight, you could just remove that and have an open trunk space. And last here we have the WeatherTech matting. And then we also upgraded the infotainment, so we have Apple CarPlay and a reverse rear camera. So all that was the upgrades for the interior of the car. We have a standard shift knob over here, and then a standard handbrake, along with the stock passenger seat. Next up, Jules said we can dyno the car and see how much wheel horsepower we're pushing, but we're gonna take a quick lunch break because it's now lunch, and there's a BRZ inside at the moment. I'm so curious, am I 500 at the wheel? Okay guys, the moment of truth. Jules is going to put the car into the dyno so we can see what the power output is. Make some guesses, comment down below. So they're moving the dyno so that it can lengthen. So cool. So because we're rear wheel drive only, they move the front roller out so that we can put the wheel on the middle of the rear roller. So it's a careful balancing act. Up. So some people like it on the roller, some people like it in front of the roller, and some people like it behind the roller. So it depends on the dyno. So we're gonna turn the car off now, and then we're gonna strap it down. Had a misfire. We're gonna try again. There was a misfire on the car. So the log says 526 for the first one, 520 for the next one, but we have misfire at these points here. Our air fuel ratio also, which is 12.6 and 12.9. So for the second run, it's the blue box, 12.6.
Ito lang part na to, it's acceptable for direct injection engines.
Okay.
Pero ito, medyo,
so
that has to be addressed.
possible gapping.
You can hear it, di ba?
Yeah, well, way, I can hear it heavily. Because the car has some misfire, Ryan wants to do a data log so we can share it with Titao and the team at Titan to figure out if we have a spark plug issue, gapping issue. Do we need hotter plugs or colder plugs? I'm not quite sure. So we're gonna get to the bottom of this, but the car is pushing some amazing power, and I think definitely we can catch up to some Porsches on the track, because a 992 or 991 GT3 is only pushing about 450 wheel horsepower, maybe even less. And we're done. Such an amazing time here at the Motul garage, and if you guys can give them a follow, please, on Instagram. Look for our boy Jules. Jules will take care of you and hook you up, and I think we're gonna end the vlog now. Thanks so much.